Imagine sleeping beneath trees with a newborn beside you. One cry could travel farther than the firelight. Cold could arrive before sunrise. Predators could follow sound through darkness. And the baby could do almost nothing alone. It could not walk. It could not find water. It could barely hold up its head. Yet human babies survived for hundreds of thousands of years. Not because ancient childhood was gentle. Because childhood was never a one-person job. The first nursery was an entire camp. And every surviving infant depended on that living system. Human newborns arrive unusually dependent. They need food constantly. They lose heat quickly. They cannot cling like many primate infants. Cannot escape anything. So why would evolution create such helpless babies? The answer begins with our expanding brain. Human brains continue enormous growth after birth. That growth keeps infants dependent for years. Anthropologist Holly Dunsworth challenged an older explanation. The classic story blamed the narrow walking pelvis. Babies supposedly arrived early to fit through it. But pregnancy also approaches a mother's metabolic limits. Birth happens near an energetic ceiling. The debate continues, but everyone agrees on the result. A human newborn enters unfinished. Its brain is still wiring itself. Its body requires nearly continuous assistance. This creates an impossible arithmetic problem. One mother must feed herself. She must recover from birth. She must produce milk. She must travel with the group. And she must protect a helpless passenger. Chimpanzee mothers usually space births by several years. Their older offspring become independent before another arrives. Humans often raise multiple dependent children simultaneously. That should overwhelm one adult. Yet it became our normal strategy. How did mothers carry that burden? They rarely carried it alone. Sarah Blaffer Hrdy called humans cooperative child rearers. Other caregivers are called allomothers. They include fathers, grandparents, siblings, aunts, and neighbors. Some researchers prefer the term biocultural reproduction. The label matters less than the pattern. Human babies grew inside networks of care. The network began with touch. Newborns lose body heat faster than adults. Close contact transfers warmth. Milk remains only a movement away. Ancient bodies functioned like portable incubators. The safest place was often another person. Carrying also changed infant behavior. Researcher Kumi Kuroda studied the transport response. Her team compared sitting mothers with walking mothers. Carried infants quickly reduced crying and movement. Their heart rates also dropped. This response appears in several mammals. A calm infant is easier to move. Imagine fleeing danger with a screaming child. Calming during movement could save both lives. Human babies still carry that ancient switch. The motion feels familiar because it once meant rescue. Carrying solved another problem. Mobile foragers could not leave babies behind. Infants traveled toward food, water, and safety. Arms carried them first. Slings and wraps later freed adult hands. Soft carriers rarely survive archaeologically, so their earliest date remains uncertain. But carrying itself is deeply ancient. Human infants possess grasping and clinging responses. Culture added knot, hide, bark fiber, and woven cloth. A baby became part of adult movement. Feeding worked through the same closeness. Breast milk supplied water, calories, antibodies, and comfort. Frequent nursing reduced dangerous gaps between meals. Night feeding required no stored container, but milk tied survival closely to maternal health. If the mother became sick, everyone had a problem. That is where the camp became crucial. Food could be brought to nursing mothers. Water could be carried. Older children could be watched elsewhere. Another adult could hold the baby. Sometimes another woman could even nurse. Among the Ife, allo-nursing has been documented. Ife infants may meet many caregivers immediately. One study reported about 14 in the first day. By 8 weeks, non-mothers supplied much physical contact. This is not occasional babysitting. It is a distributed survival system. An ancient infant probably learned quickly. Natural selection favored babies who engaged helpers. Hrdy and Judith Burkhardt developed this argument. Human infants became unusually attentive to social signals. They recruit attention with smiles and sounds. A charming baby gained more than affection. It gained time, food, warmth, and protection. Social intelligence may begin inside this dependency. Before humans negotiated alliances, infants negotiated care. But who actually helped most? The answer changes across societies. There was never one universal family arrangement. Recent AGTA and Bayaka research measured children's proximity networks. Small tracking devices recorded who stayed near young children. Siblings mattered. Unrelated campmates mattered. Older children mattered enormously. Fathers and grandmothers varied more between communities. This flexibility may be the real human adaptation. If one helper disappeared, another could step closer. A rigid system breaks. A flexible network bends. Older children were especially important. They watched toddlers while playing nearby. They carried infants short short distances. They distracted crying children. They taught games, dangers, and local rules. Childcare became part of childhood itself. Among AGTA families, children's playgroups reduced maternal childcare. No single child replaced the mother. The group shared small pieces of attention. This freed mothers for foraging and other work. It also trained future caregivers. A 7-year-old learned babies before becoming a parent. Knowledge moved sideways, not only downward. Could civilization exist without older siblings? Perhaps our species was partly raised by children. Fathers also contributed, but not identically everywhere. Others focus more on food production and defense. Direct father care varies widely among foragers. Provisioning can matter without constant physical contact. A successful hunt feeds more than one child. Sharing spreads risk across families. Another household's food can bridge the gap. Babies survived uncertainty through social insurance. Grandmothers added another layer. Kristen Hawkes studied Hadza, foraging and child growth. Older women gathered foods young children could not obtain. When mothers nursed new infants, grandmothers helped older siblings. This pattern inspired the grandmother hypothesis. Long post-reproductive lives may have supported descendants. Historical studies often find grandmother effects on survival, but those effects vary by lineage, age, and ecology. Grandmothers were not magical guarantees. They were experienced buffers against bad years. They remembered birth, storms, predators, and famine. Memory itself became childcare technology. An elder could prevent repeated mistakes. The camp also protected infants physically. Adults arranged sleeping bodies around vulnerable children. Fire discouraged some predators. Shelters reduced wind and rain. Noise from many people signaled collective strength. Someone usually woke during the night. A baby rarely depended on one sleeping nervous system, yet danger remained constant. Infection could enter through birth injuries. Diarrhea could dehydrate an infant quickly. Cold nights could become lethal. Milk supply could fail. A mother could die. Ancient infant mortality was brutally high. Cooperation improved odds, not certainty. Evolution does not design perfect childhoods. It preserves strategies that fail slightly less often. Why are babies so loud despite predators? Because silence creates another danger. A quiet infant may be ignored. Crying forces nearby brains to respond. The sound changes adult heart rate and attention. It is expensive, irritating, and difficult to ignore. That is precisely why it works. In a caregiving network, crying broadcasts need. Experienced caregivers learn those differences. Babies also learn when crying succeeds. This creates a feedback loop. Signals shape caregivers. Caregivers shape signals. Over generations, dependency became communication. Communication became cooperation, and cooperation changed human mind. Burkhardt argues shared childcare favored greater social tolerance. Infants had to accept care from multiple people. Adults had to tolerate access to vulnerable offspring. That required trust beyond the mother-infant pair. Perhaps our friendliness began beside a crying newborn. Perhaps empathy grew from repeated helplessness. The baby could not repay anyone immediately. Care arrived before exchange. That is a strange foundation for society. Ancient infants also changed camp movement. Roots followed water and shade. Stops had to accommodate feeding. Food choices considered weaning children. Whole landscapes were experienced through small bodies. The weakest member quietly redesigned group behavior. Does that still happen inside every family? A stroller changes the route. A nap changes the schedule. A fever changes everyone's priority. The technology changed. The dependency did not. Modern nurseries hide the old network. 1 or 2 adults may now work alone. Walls block neighbours. Paid childcare replaces campmates. Phones replace nearby advice. Many parents interpret exhaustion as personal failure. But solitary parenting is historically unusual. Human children were built for many relationships. Human caregivers were built for shared effort. This does not make ancient life romantic. Babies still died. Mothers still suffered. Communities still failed. But survival came from distributing impossible work. No single person provided every meal. No single person noticed every danger. No single person carried every child. The system survived because responsibility moved. So how did ancient humans keep babies alive? They used warmth before incubators. They used milk before bottle. They used movement before strollers. They used elders before manuals. They used siblings before daycare. They used sharing before insurance. Most importantly, they used each other. The helpless baby was not an evolutionary mistake. It was a demand for cooperation. Our longest childhood created our deepest social dependence. That dependence may have trained the human mind. Every adult began as unfinished work. Every survivor was completed by many hands. The first village was not built around houses. It was built around a child nobody could raise alone.